We have already seen which strategy Mamdani is going to advocate for. The same people who was on the campaign trail, the people who were supporting him, was locked out of his victory party. He's already shown his hand. He's like, thanks for the victory, guys. Good luck. Look, Mamdani says he will meet with Jamie Dimon, other financial tie-ins in New York City. And Shama, there was a lot of people upset with me because you know what I did? I exposed the fact that he had campaign donations from people like Elizabeth Simmons, hardcore Zionists like Elizabeth Simmons. And you guys wonder why he conceded on stuff like allowing the Zionists to lead the NYPD, why he condemns globalized the Intifada, why he is organizing and having photo ops with Richie Torres, and someone who donates the Working Family Party. We warned you on RBN. It's one of the reasons why I'm blacklisted by the gatekeeper class we talk about, Shama. The gatekeeper class don't want anything to do with this because I expose how the Working Family Party take donations from George and Alex Soros. And they was supportive in donating to Zohran Mamdani. So when this photo dropped, everyone on the internet like, what? I was like, I said this months ago. So what is the strategy? If it was a strategy, if he was reaching out to you, have you reached out to you, Shama? Have you reached? He didn't reach out to RBN. If he ain't reached out with any mutual aid organization, what is your strategy? Are you reaching out to Shama, or are you reaching out to Alex Soros? Are you reaching out to Jamie Dimon? So I'm not trying to be negative, fam. I'm telling you guys, all the red flags are right here. Yes, Zionists are melting down, but Zohran Mamdani had to win by condemning the resistance. He had to condemn globalize the Intifada. He had to condemn. So that actually put a target on real activists who advocated against struggle against the Zionist empire. It's undercutting the interests of our Palestinian brothers and sisters by condemning their struggle against the Zionist state. So yes, he won, but he delegitimized the struggles of our brothers and sisters. It's something that they've been very concerned about ever since he's spoken out against resistance, legitimizing the state of Israel. Because as everyone in New York is celebrating, they having their bourgeoisie late night after party clubs, the ceasefire is still going on. The ceasefire has failed to stop the violence in Gaza. Israel is still starving the people in Gaza. Ben-Gvir had made it clear. He gave public speeches. He was like, guys, this ceasefire is not real. We just wanted to get our hostages back. You guys think we was going to stop and we was going to pull away from Gaza? If you guys thought that was ever on the table, you guys was out of your damn mind. This is what Ben-Gvir is openly saying. So I'm going to show you guys a few headlines. I'm going to give you your thoughts, Shama. Because as the professional managerial class, as the Zohran Mamdani left, is just busy dancing in the streets of New York, nothing had changed. Absolutely nothing had changed. Not only are you're not closer to Medicare for all, you're not closer to increasing minimum wage, you still have the Palestinian people that are being slaughtered. For the people who only listening, the headline I have here: Gaza receives less than 1/3 of humanitarian aid promised by Israel. Where is Zohran Mamdani on this? Instead, he spent his time legitimizing the anti-Semitism hoax and explaining how he's going to use the NYPD to crack down on anti-Semitism. That's what his intention is right now. Instead of highlighting this stuff, at least Rashid Tlaib says something. There is no ceasefire. It is a lie. More than 200 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli government since Trump claimed a ceasefire was achieved. And I showed you guys how CNN, Dana Bash, all these people was going along. The people who consider themselves Trump enemies, Shama, they were spreading Trump's lie. They was like, you got to give Trump credit for his Gaza peace plan. They were saying that as Israel was slaughtering Palestinians, for like people like Fareed Zakaria, the people who jokes of a journalist, they're pure propagandists, giving Trump victories where he never deserved it. Not only did he not deserve any credit for peace in Gaza, he's straight up enabling terrorist attacks in the West Bank. Israeli settlers' attacks in West Bank reached record numbers in October, UN says. And Donald Trump, he came out and his administration said clear that we're not going to sanction Israeli settlers attacking people in the West Bank. So when he said that publicly, that was permission. So what happens, Shama, when the president of the United States is like, I know Biden floated the idea of putting sanctions and they didn't do it. And then Trump was actually like, no, we're not going to put any sanctions on settlers in the West Bank. They hear you when you say that. So the Israeli terrorists immediately escalated their assault. They are reaching record numbers of attacks in the West Bank as you are partying in New York, as you're celebrating Zoran's victory. Israel is annexing the West Bank. They voted to annex the West Bank. You had the Israeli army strike the West Bank 2,350 times last month. Shama? But
yeah,
go ahead. Shama, go for it.
No, I was just going to say that, first of all, on your earlier point about to whatever extent the ceasefire, I mean, we all, you and I, and we were predicting that the ceasefire is not actually going to last. And immediately we saw that happening. And I agree with you. It was important that Rashida Tlaib at least said that openly, that, that Israel is still killing people in Gaza. But even before I come to that point, to the extent that the ceasefire was going to prevent the deaths, what I said in my rally speech, that Nick, you and I were both there. You were there. Thanks for coming and speaking at our
it was great. It was great.
campaign rally in Seattle in October. Yeah, that was fantastic. And you'll remember, Nick, what I said in my speech was that every death that can be prevented needs to be prevented, and every loss of limb or injury that can be prevented needs to be prevented. But the credit to that uh, does not go to Trump. It goes to the international anti-war movement. It goes Absolutely. To the workers in Italy, the general strike in Italy. That's where the credit belongs. First of all, it is completely dishonest to say that any credit belongs with Trump. I mean, he felt the pressures, and that's why he went. And in fact, he felt the pressure from his own MAGA base. That is a section of his MAGA base that is anti-Israel and pro-Palestine and anti-genocide. And so, which also shows that the consciousness of working class people can shift. It can shift in a good way if there is actual direction provided to it. But as far as what's actually happening, yeah, it's completely bloody. In fact, right now, as many organizations are saying, Gaza is the world's largest mass grave, with 10,000 Palestinians estimated that remain buried under the rubble. The kind of infrastructure that will be needed to even begin rebuilding there, the kind of food and medical assistance and housing and water and electricity that's needed, nothing of that sort is still reaching Gaza. In fact, I saw a new report, I think, on Democracy Now, where they said that only a fraction of the 8 trucks that were supposedly, under the ceasefire agreement that the Israeli state was supposed to allow into Gaza, they're allowing only a fraction of that. So it is still absolutely brutal. And in for all practical purposes, the genocide is still going on. And we saw this report from this journalist. I'm sure you saw this, Nick, from Jasper Nathaniel, who was himself, he had to himself run for his life because the settlers in the West Bank are so violent. They were also coming after him. I mean, Nathaniel is a US born a US citizen, and he's a journalist, and yet he didn't feel like he had any protection there. You can imagine the kind of brutality and inhumanity and savagery with which these Jewish settlers, right-wing settlers, are attacking ordinary Palestinian people. There was this iconic photo that Jasper Nathaniel took of an older woman who was picking olives from her own grove, and she was being beaten. She was being clubbed by this settler. That's the kind of utter inhumanity that is unfolding there in the West Bank. That is also part of this story. And I think just to, if you don't mind, Nick, I wanted to, present this in light of what's needed to be done. Like, what is actually going to stop all this? None of this is going to stop unless we understand that the Israeli state, I mean, obviously there's a Zionist ideology, but that is not at the root of it. At the root of it is the material interests of US imperialism, of the capitalist class, not only in the United States, but also in Western Europe, but also the wealthy classes in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco. So, in other words, this is a question of class alliances, that the Israeli state plays the role of a garrison state. It's an outpost for capitalist interests in a region that is both materially important because of the oil reserves, but also it's a geopolitically crucial region because of the Suez Canal and so on. And so the Israeli occupation, the brutal occupation, and the apartheid state that they have against the Palestinian people, that acts as a huge weaponry against any kind of working class solidarity and working class rebellion in that entire region. And so, in order for anything to change, it has to be a rebellion by working class people in the United States. And the very first step that needs to be taken is actually building a mass movement, a militant mass movement in the United States to end all US military aid to the Israeli state. But that's not going to happen through backroom deals or be doing softly, or like, the moves like AOC, like trying to build some alliance with the Democratic Party and somehow making that happen. No, when you're calling for an end to all US military aid to Israel, which nobody else is, none of these Democrats are doing, not a single Democrat is willing to call for that. Not a single labor leader is calling for that. Rank and file union members are calling for it, yes, but nobody in a leadership position is calling for it other than us. And we are very clear that when you call for an end to all US military aid to Israel, you are taking on battle directly with US imperialism, with Wall Street interests, with BlackRock and Blackstone and Vanguard, and all of these absolutely unsavory and criminal and bloody billionaire class that we're taking a battle with. Also, all the tech billionaires, because all of these billionaires and multimillionaires are benefiting from the genocide and from the occupation. And that is why, Nick, you will see the statistics, the kind of you'll see. So obviously there are out and out genociders like my opponent Adam Smith. But if you look at the numbers, it is pretty shocking. The Congressional Progressive Caucus has, I don't know, probably 150 members or something, 95 voting members. During the main bill, which sent, I believe, $26 billion for the genocide, this was House Resolution 8034. There were 95 members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus who were there for voting that day. 53 of those 95 voted to send tens of billions of dollars for the genocide. This is the Congressional Progressive Caucus, for God's sake. And
Big
who's a
party.
yeah, exactly. And who's by the way, this is another side story, but important one, Nick. Who's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus? Adam Smith.
Come on, man. Come
Yes,
on, man.
this guy voted for the Iraq war invasion. He
Come
voted
on.
for Afghanistan. He voted for every war that came his way. He voted to create ICE. He voted to cut money from Medicare and Medicaid. He voted to bail out the big banks. This guy is a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. One more thing, if I might. 38 of the 60 House members from the Congressional Black Caucus voted to send tens of billions of dollars for the genocide. I think it is important to call these numbers out because it reveals the true nature of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, don't get me started about the Zionism problem in the Black Congressional Caucus and the Progressive Caucus as a whole. This is the problem when you have these big tent capitalist parties. They all supportive of imperialism. And one thing I want to mention regarding the terrorist attacks we are seeing in the West Bank, we're going to get to Adam Smith earlier because I found an interview where he was talking about military intervention. I saw a quote that was pretty funny where, of course, he supports United States presence military bases in South America. We'll get to that very soon. But you guys realize that there's a reason that you're not seeing actual footage of the genocide in Gaza anymore on your feed? It's because they murdered all the journalists in Gaza. We have seen the genocidal West completely wage war on journalism as a concept. As a Zionist in the West, why Israel banned journalists recording what's going on in Gaza? Why won't they allow the UK, like a Western-friendly ally, to send BBC journalists in? It's a state-approved war on journalism. And that's why many people have been taking a tranquilizing drug, and many people have been focused on Zohran Mamdani and focused on electoralism because they haven't seen these Palestinian bodies on their feet anymore, Shama. They systematically got rid of all documentation of their crimes in Gaza, which is why we are seeing these insane numbers. You see these insane numbers about, wait, what? They attacked the West Bank 2,350 times? They violated the ceasefire hundreds of times. What? I didn't see that. Yes, they murdered all the journalists. And everyone in the West is complicit with it. The UK is a straight up fascist state. Why is Mamdani critiquing Venezuela and Cuba, but not laying a glove on the UK? Like you guys know they are still prosecuting Richard Medders. They're accusing him of being a terrorist because his position is that of international law. He explained how Palestinians have the right to armed resistance. So they say he's a terrorist supporter, Shama. So the UK is a fascist state. Journalism is banned there. You guys see what they're enabling in the West? And you want to know who's helping them? You want to know who's the biggest friend of fascism? We're dealing with xyofascism. I think that's more of a nerdy distinction. But it's fascism at the end of the day. Like many of the lame libertarian fence sitter, you know, the people, I know you see them all the time. I'm like, I don't call myself a socialist, man. I think there's, I'm just. They will never have the critique that the capitalist class side with the fascists. That's how fascism is enabled when capitalists work in coordination. When capitalists and fascists work in coordination to crack down on anti-war movements, on the working class. And you want to know what the big tech bros are doing right now? They are working with the Zionists, and this includes Elon Musk, who is deleting tweets and posts documenting the genocide in Gaza. It's not just YouTube. We've seen it in Instagram. Here's the headline for people who are just listening. YouTube removed hundreds of videos of Israeli human rights violation to comply with Trump's sanctions. Fam, do you realize how insane this is? So Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz waged a war, Shama, against the International Criminal Court because they put an arrest warrant out against Benjamin Netanyahu. So Trump in the United States with the UK and European allies, they decided to sanction the International Criminal Court. So YouTube is not standing with international law. They're not standing with the anti-genocide activists. They're standing with the fascists in our government. So if you're a Dave Smith type, if you're one of these anti-Zionist libertarians, hey, dipshit, the capitalist class is not on your side. You see how you tackle the issue of Zionism with class war? Dismantling the empire, not asking for a friendlier one simply for you. You got to take on the empire and the capitalist system itself, or they will continue to run interference on behalf of the genocidal capitalist class. But I think I'm belaboring the point here. Shama, you have any reaction to this? Anything you want to add before I move on? We get near the tail end here. Anything you want to add here?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One is that just on your the part that you said, which was really important, Nick, is the literally the journalists that have been targeted in different ways, including killed in Gaza. I mean, it is just shocking. And I'm sure you saw that Chris Hedges, who's been really outspoken about the genocide and the role of the United States in imperialism in general, but also about the way the journalists have been targeted. He was supposed to give the keynote address at the National Press Club of Australia event recently, and he was banned from doing that, as I'm sure you heard, because that is too much truth for the ruling class and its representatives and its peons. Basically, that's what most of what passes for journalism. They're just stenographers for the ruling class, and always was for a lot of people. But it's just, what's stunning about it is not that it's entirely new, because this is going to be true under capitalism in general. But what's stunning about this is the all-encompassing degree to which this has happened, where, like you're saying, that they're literally wiping out the videos from the documentation, and in fact they are preventing images from going into people's phones, because that's how people were angry about the genocide. And then let's not forget that it's in this context that Elon Musk, we just heard that the Tesla board is giving him $1 trillion pay packet. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the crazy world of capitalism. This is the casino of capitalism. That is what we're up against, and we have to build a revolutionary fight back. And I just wanted to one more thing. I think it's a very important point to add in the discussion relating to the genocide as we wrap up the 2025 elections and head to the midterms. And obviously, our campaign, in our view, is the most crucial vehicle that the working class needs to get involved in, because we have a chance at defeating a genocidal billionaire-backed Democrat, a 28-year incumbent, and turn Washington, D.C. politics completely upside down in the way that we have turned the politics in Seattle upside down. And we can win a breakthrough victory, and that's what the working class needs right now. We need a breakthrough victory, and this has the potential of being that. But the reason I'm mentioning all this is that why our campaign and our position as an independent socialist is so crucial is that we are the only ones. Our campaign is the only one heading into the midterms that is calling for and fighting for an end to all US military aid to the Israeli state. And the reason I shared those statistics about the Congressional Progressive Caucus and the Congressional Black Caucus is that right now, and you were mentioning this earlier, Nick, right now getting money from AIPAC has become radioactive, because the mass of people are not accepting it. So you do have candidates now saying, I'm not taking money from AIPAC. But here's the deal. A lot of those people who voted for the genocide money, they are also not taking money from AIPAC, but they did that anyway. AOC is not taking money from AIPAC. Even she has cast votes in favor of the genocide by calling Iron Dome a defensive weapon. And that's why it's important for us to remember that, because heading into the midterms, we're going to have candidates like Graham Plattner, Kat Abu Ghazaleh. I mean, we actually tweeted out in solidarity with her and her fellow activists who are being targeted by Trump for their anti-ICE activism. But what we're clarifying is that a lot of these candidates say that they're not taking money from AIPAC, which is good. That's the first step. However, as long as you're running from the Democratic Party, the writing is on the wall. A lot of people who have not taken money from AIPAC either outright voted for the genocide, or they didn't vote for it, but they've been silent in the face of it and refusing to call for an end to arms to Israel. So that is where it's at. And I think it's important that we build a powerful campaign to defeat Adam Smith.
I'm still mad that they compared you to Zoran. I'm still mad they compare you to Graham Plattner, bro. Get the fuck out of here. Like, no one should ever take the free press serious ever again. Get the fuck out of here.
And also, what about this of following somebody's lead? I mean, we ran in 2013 and we were on the city council for 10 years. We won 4 elections. If anything, they're following our lead, but not quite. I wish they were following our lead, but they're not.
Like, the audacity of these people. I found it right before we went live. I'm like, man, I know Shama will laugh at this. The audacity of this ridiculous article. And by the way, I have a question for the anti-communists who pretend they're actually socialists. If socialism is so toxic that you have to run away from it, why do you guys call yourself socialists when you're not? Zoran Mamdani is a welfare capitalist. Now, if you like that, if you think that's necessary for your life, that's okay. You're not as far left as us. But he's not a socialist. He supports social welfare programs, social welfare reforms. That is not a socialist. So if you think socialism is politically toxic, why are you jacking the label? Why won't you just call yourself a welfare capitalist? Like, there was the leak jacks with Grand Platinum. Was like, man, I'm secretly a communist. No, the fuck you're not, bro. Like, you guys would not be organizing within a genocidal party. If you're a communist, you wouldn't be fighting for a genocidal empire. So if the label is as toxic as you guys claim it is, why you guys keep jacking our swag? I hear people say all the time, they're like, Nick, ACP, Haas, why are you guys always gatekeeping socialism? My response is, why do you guys keep trying to call yourself socialist if you're not? It's just crazy to me. But Shama, I think you wanted to chime in. I think this headline was funny. Anything else you want to say before I move on? We get near the end here.
Yeah, just on that, I mean, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people are calling themselves socialists or joining DSA, and calling themselves democratic social. I mean, any given person, I don't know what's in their brain and how well-intentioned they are. I don't want to get into that discussion because that's not a useful discussion. But what I can say is that the reason they're not dispensing with the socialist label and they are calling themselves socialists is because actually socialism and socialist ideas are increasingly popular among the American working class.
Absolutely.
If there's anything that's unpopular, it is the C word, that's capitalism. And in fact, we showed this, 11 years ago when we ran, 12 years ago when we ran as an open socialist at that time. And there were a lot of Democratic Party operatives telling me, oh, don't run as a socialist. People are not going to like it. But no, they liked it. That is precisely what they liked it. But I want to say that if you are not a revolutionary socialist, you will not be able to win the kind of victories that we won. And so, I want to clarify that they are certainly not revolutionaries. Many of these people calling themselves socialists are not revolutionaries. They are running inside a party of capitalism, as you said. But they are, if you don't have a revolutionary approach, and revolutionary meaning if you don't have at least a militant approach, a clarity that you can't win material gains for the working class by trying to make peace with the bosses who are exploiting the working class, if you don't get that much, then you're not going to be able to win even reforms, so to say. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that it is precisely revolutionaries that make the best and really the only winners of reforms. So if we want to win healthcare, we've got to build the kind of movement that we are talking about. And, that is why, for example, on December 6th, we are hosting a town hall on free healthcare for all, funded by taxing the rich. I mean, how many years have AOC and Bernie Sanders and Pramila Jayapal and whoever else talked about Medicare for all and never, ever even brought it to a vote in the US Congress? Why? Because they don't want to expose the Democrats who want to vote no, and so they don't want the vote itself. Same with CalCare. 2 times the California Democrats refused to bring it to a vote and completely betrayed the movement. And so if there's any future for actual healthcare, universal healthcare, that breakthrough is only going to come about through the kind of approach we are talking about. And that is another reason why it's so crucial that we fight to win this position in US Congress.